Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Stratch Professor, and today we're going to be doing a brand new video that's top 5 tips for AD carries from a Diamond support main. So this is going to be from the perspective of support, watching, thousands and thousands of my AD carries during games over the years. And these are the top 5 things that I think AD carries could do to help improve their chances to win. So if you'd like to sponsor a guide like this yourself, just email me at thestratchprofessor@gmail.com. I've got it linked right here. Let me know what you have in mind. I can do champion guides or topical guides. Right now it's just $30 for a guide. I'll put a lot of research into it, a lot of effort, and then bring you a video just like this. If you want to become a channel member, either through the member button on YouTube or through PayPal or through a Twitch Prime sub, you can do that, and I'll give you $5 off of a guide as well. I do also offer coaching sessions for $25 base, $20 for members. I do it right on stream. I turn it into a permanent video that I put into a playlist. You can always go back and review that if you want. Or if you just want to watch other people getting coached, there's a playlist of about 200 videos you can go through and look at some of your favorite champions and see some free analysis of that from other coaching sessions that people have sponsored. Or if you just want a really quick op.gg review, just catch me on the stream, $5 donation, and I'll just look really quickly at the champs you're playing, your items, your runes, and give you some quick feedback over just a few minutes in between games. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So I'm not going to go into the just generic tips. I might do another video like that before the start of the preseason. I'm trying to do more of these videos, maybe one about every day or every other day about some kind of topic. But just generic tips to win in general that don't specifically apply to ADCs, but that pretty much everyone can do, is always try to play to win. And what that means is don't play for stats. Don't play for like your ego or glory or whatever. Play to win the game. And that's going to come into play a little bit with ADC in a moment. But pretty much just like don't worry about what people are saying, what people think, what people are doing, like how you're doing in the game. All that matters is you get that win if you're trying to climb. Now, if you're not trying to climb, if you don't care, if you're just trying to have fun, do whatever you want, pretty much. But my guides are always trying to teach you how to improve as a player and how to rank up, right? But if just playing for fun is just subjective. That's just your thing. If you want to play to try to get pentakills all the time, or you just really love playing this one champion, even though you don't have a great win rate on it, or it's not in the meta, then do that. It's your game experience. Do what you want to do. I think there is some consideration if you're playing ranked for real to put into your teammates. That's a different discussion. So I think that's a lot more debatable, right? Whether or not you should be able to YOLO play whatever you want, in ranked, even if it's probably going to lose the game and ruin the experiences for your 4 other teammates. And that's a different discussion. But just in general, when I'm talking about these tips and how to win, I'm talking about playing to win. And you need to have the play to win mentality. Sometimes that means you have to swallow your ego. Sometimes that means you're behind in the game and you got to play defensively. Or maybe you have to give that red buff over to, the 8-0 Olaf instead of trying to take it for yourself if you're 0-3 as ADC. So just always have that play to win mentality. Another thing that I highly recommend is just disabling the chat. Like, just don't even have the chat on, both all chat and allied chat. I've changed my position on this over the years. I used to, start off with the chat enabled and then only mute people in extreme circumstances. But the bottom line is the chat is just usually a distraction. There's almost nothing good that comes out of the chat, honestly, that can't be expressed with emotes, especially with emotes. If you just want to say good job to somebody, just have a cute little emote that can show that, or like a thumbs up. Or, sometimes people will like question mark ping somebody if they made a really good play. If they made a double, like a double kill outplay on a gank or something. You can just question mark ping them a few times, and people will understand that you're telling them, that you're giving them a compliment, right? Now, if they screw up, do not question mark ping them, because obviously that's going to be antagonistic. But just in general, the more I've thought about it, it just, there's nothing good. It's usually just people arguing with each other or making excuses for why they're doing poorly. That's it. And even if they aren't personally attacking you, even if you don't think of yourself as getting, really worked up and emotional about it, it does add up. It takes some of your, some of your mental power on something else. And then even if you're just kind of rolling your eyes at somebody complaining about the game, it does add up. It does create an atmosphere of negativity, and it's distracting. So I say just disable the chat in general. There's very little that I mean, there are some things that maybe you have to type out that are really complicated, but in general, like let's do a 1-3-1 split or something. But you can still communicate that with pings, and then just click the assist in the side lanes, and people figure it out. If they can't figure that out, they're not going to figure it out if you type it. So I just highly recommend disabling chat. Another thing is tilt management. The biggest thing you can do to manage your tilt is disable the chat, but also just have a play to win mentality. Just understand that you're going to lose games. You're going to have bad games. Your teammates are going to have bad games. That happens. All right, but just try to understand what can you do to improve the game, and that comes into process mentality. Don't just look at results. Don't just think, I've won lane the last 3 games, and my teammates suck. They're all feeding. Therefore solo queue's impossible. It's like, that's not really helpful if you're trying to climb, right? You need to think, okay, well, if I was winning my lane, what could I have done to help my teammates, right? Could I have rotated more? Could I have given them better vision? Could I have shot called more to make sure we get more dragons? Could I have watched the mini-map more and pinged if I saw that someone was going to gank mid lane, even though I'm bot lane? Can I still ping and communicate information to mid lane? So just think about, what could you do to improve your chances of winning? Sometimes you're going to lose anyways. It's not going to matter what you do. You could shot call all day, nobody listens. You could go 10-0 in lane, and then the top laner just decides to AFK because he went 0-3. I mean, that's going to happen, right? But if you play a lot of games over time, a lot of these things will improve your chances to win. So have the process mentality. Think of winning as a process, not as a result. It's a state of mind. It's a skill set that you develop over time. It's not a stat sheet. It's not a win-loss column. It's sort of a mentality that you develop and a skill set that you develop over time. So it's important to keep that in mind. So it's okay to be frustrated, but just try to circle back and just think, okay, well, what can I do to help me win next time, right? What can I learn from this? And another thing is general tilt management stuff. If you lose 2 or 3 games in a row, or you think you're just distracted, like if you find yourself walking into champion select and you're already negative, you're already just thinking, oh God, here we go again, that probably means that you're tilted. Even if you're not like really angry about it. I personally don't usually get that angry. But, my form of being tilted in a sense is I'll find myself being negative just right from the outset, and just being frustrated by small things over time. And if you're not a streamer, if you're not a content creator, then just try to take a break, go do something else, watch a funny video, go get something to eat, get some exercise, work on some homework, clean your kitchen, whatever it is, just take a break for a little bit, detilt, get yourself back to a neutral mentality, and then get back into the game. If you're a streamer, it's a bit different. You have to play through it sometimes. But, the vast majority of people are just playing this game on their own, and they're perfectly capable of just chilling for 10 minutes and go do something else and come back. And then also just having a small champion pool. So just playing like 3 to 5 champions that are really strong and not trying to be a specialist in everything. Pick a role, pick a few champions that you're good at, and stick with the stuff that's winning for you. Okay, so those are just some really quick generic tips that apply to all roles. But let's start talking about very specific things that apply to AD carry. And I'm going to count them down. They're all really important, but it kind of gets to increasing complexity and like what's most important, what I see the most as we work our way down from 5 to 1. The things that I see people messing up with the most. Okay, so number 1, play your best champions more. I see this so often is that people will just get bored of playing their strong champions, or they just, want to play something different, or, they're trying to shift to the meta too much. We'll talk about meta here in a second. That's always a tension. Do you play meta champions, or do you play the champions that you're best on? Ideally, you get good on champions that are in the meta very often. But if it's a toss-up between, you have 1,000 games on Kalista with a 60% win rate, or you have 10 games on Caitlyn with a 40% win rate, you should play the Kalista. Just because you have way more experience, you have a really high win rate, even though it's not in the meta, even though everyone thinks it's trash, if you're good on that champion, you're good on that champion. That's it. So you should be trying to play your best champions more. And there are a few tools that can help you figure this out, and I'm just going to show you some of these up here. There are a lot of other ones, but these are ones that I commonly look at when I'm making guides, when I'm trying to, learn how to improve myself. U.GG is a really good one. This has a lot of different tools. A lot of people know about the generic one. You just look up a champion and it'll give you some basic information like runes that most people go, items that most people go, skill order, specific matchups. So things that like Kai'Sa's not good into right here. And so that's pretty helpful. So that's over 17,000 matches. So it's a pretty good size, but you got to keep in mind some of this stuff. People can be wrong about things over time, and this doesn't really capture situational picks. So you'll notice there's never a QSS here, for example, a Quicksilver Sash. But it might be correct to get a Quicksilver Sash in a lot of matchups. And the pro thing is broken right now because this is New Year's Day. I don't know. It's just not working. But a lot of times it's useful just to go through pro games and see what they're doing and then look at the situation. So just look and see, okay, why did this person choose to go something weird here? Why are they going Conquer instead of Press the Attack? Or why do they have a Quicksilver Sash? And just look at it and see what's the matchup? How was the game going? Right? Were they losing the game over time? Were they winning the game? Who was their lane partner? What were their matchups, in the bot lane? Was there a mid laner that was super fed that did a lot of magic damage or had a lot of CC? So it's good to go through and look at the generic build, what thousands and thousands of people did, but it's also good to go through and look at specific like pro players and what they did in different situations. OP.GG is very similar for this. You can look at your own personal OP.GG, and I think this is useful sometimes just to kind of review your own stats for games, to see how many wards you got, just to see your overall win rates. But another useful thing about OP.GG is if you look at champions, now this only covers Platinum Plus on the Korean server, okay? So that's going to be a little bit different, and it says it up here. That's going to be a little bit different than what you might experience in like EU or North America. But nevertheless, it can still give you some good ideas. So for example, if you go down here and look at Recon, if you click on Recon, this will give you some information like here, most common builds. This is just like U.GG, most common runes. But the thing that they do that is unique from U.GG, which is useful, is it'll show you like some of the top rated one-trick Recons. And so you can go through and click on that. So you can click on this one. It'll go through. Now, a lot of these top players during the preseason don't play a lot of games on their best champions. They either don't play at all, or they play flexes, or they play on Smurfs. But once the season starts, you'll see a lot more games with these guys playing more often. But you can just go through and just look at different top players and see what they're doing, right? And that might be different from what the generic population's doing and what certain pros are doing. And just go through and see. Be like, okay, and what's the order that this guy's building these items in? So if you look at builds here in this game, it's like, okay, he's maxing W. That's unusual because sometimes top pro players will start maxing, maybe they max Q, maybe they max E. Rakan is a very flexible champion in terms of the support role, and so he can do a whole bunch of different stuff. So it's very important to look at the context. Kai'Sa for ADC is very much like this as well. There are a lot of different builds you can go on Kai'Sa. There are a few different runes you can go on Kai'Sa, and so you need to understand, like, what's the context? Why are different pros doing things in different situations? So he went for Zeke's Ardent Censer because he had a Vayne, and presumably his Vayne was probably doing pretty well. I don't know if it's going to have her on here. Yeah, she had 10 kills. So she was 10-6, so she may have been ahead early on. So he was going to go ahead and get a Zeke's. Maybe she had 3 or 4 kills out of the laning phase, and so he was like, you know what, she's really far ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get an Ardent Censer next. Versus if she was really far behind, maybe he would have gotten something like a Knight's Vow or a Redemption, Athene's, or something like that. And you can also see, oh, that's cool, he's going for Ultimate Hunter plus Zombie Ward. Well, that's not really what a lot of people do. That's the kind of thing that I do. I do Ghost Poro plus Ulti Hunter, but a lot of people still do like Inspiration secondary on their runes and things like that. So just flipping through, seeing, what are the best one-tricks doing, and just click on different people and just see. What's JoJo doing, what's IQ doing, what's Swindler doing. And so you can just get a feel for different one-tricks. So I think that's pretty useful with OP.GG. And you notice, yeah, the standard was saying that a lot of people were going Nimbus Cloak and Celerity still. But that one particular person was doing something else. So that can just give you some ideas about what you can do. Another thing that's useful is on Porofessor. If you click over here, I think I had Porofessor open, maybe not. Okay, let's click on that. If you click on just like your overall champion. So if you click on like Rakan here, for example, then this will give you some information about how your fighting's looking, how your farming's looking, objective control, vision, and you can see it right here on a graph how you compare to other people in your elo bracket, right? So if I was compared to Masters players or Diamond players, Platinum players, Gold players, all this stuff, you can kind of get a sense at where you're succeeding and what some things are that maybe you could do a little bit better. So, I'm winning 64% of team fights. I'm at 86% of team fights over here. A lot of other Rakans are getting a few more kills and assists than me in a game. Maybe they're averaging 17, but they're also averaging like double my deaths. So I'm averaging like 3.5 deaths, and they're averaging 5.5 deaths. So they're trying to make more, they're trying to make more plays, but a lot of those are, so they're getting more kills and assists off of that, but they're also sacrificing themselves and dying a lot more to do it. So that's just kind of a difference in play style you can notice there. You can see like roaming kills, different things like that. You can look at vision, objective control, things like that. I usually average about maybe a quarter dragon more. I get more out of Rift Herald, which is interesting than a lot of people, which means I'm probably setting up vision better, shot calling a little bit better, and things like that. So you can just flip through, you can see how your farming compares to a lot of other, I don't know how I have a minions advantage. I guess maybe there are some Rakans that are taking like Frostfang instead of Relic Shield. I don't know. Have a huge level advantage starting around level like 25. But it's just kind of cool to go through, flip through, see all those stats. And another final thing that I'll mention here that's really useful to help out is if you go to u.gg, you type in your own summoner name, it'll pull it up, and then just go to champion stats here. And you can see your top champions that you played, and then you can click on the champion. So just click on Soraka here, for example. It'll tell you a lot of that same information, but this will actually tell you what your best matchups are. So sometimes it's hard to get a sense for that, and some things can be a little misleading, right? So for instance, as Soraka, I actually do very, very well against Leona, who's thought to be a hard counter versus Soraka, but I win 63% of my games versus Leona. Versus I would think, that I would be pretty good against Morgana because I rush Mikhail's a lot of Soraka, and I feel like that's a good matchup. But statistically, that is not a very good matchup, right? I only win 17% of my Morgana games. Now, it's a very small sample size of like 6 games here, so, keep sample sizes in mind. But this can just give you some, good information that maybe you hadn't thought of. And you can look at duos here. So who are the champions that I perform the best with in lane? So Jhin is my best at 73%. And I feel like I win lane a lot with Miss Fortune, but I really only go 50-50. Same thing with Caitlyn. It's about 52%. And I feel like I don't win a lot with Vayne, and that's true. Or Jinx. So you can just kind of flip through and just see which supports do I do best with. That might influence your decision. Maybe you're thinking in a game, I could go Miss Fortune or I could go Lucian right now. I'm not sure who to do. And then you look at your duos and you see, okay, this person picked Nautilus. I tend to do a lot better on Miss Fortune when they have Nautilus. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick Miss Fortune, right? So that can give you some information that you can use to kind of figure out, maybe what you should do. So this is just all ways that you can kind of learn more about yourself, learn more about top players, what they're building, and think more critically about items, runes, matchups, and things like that. And I think a lot of people don't use these things. And all of these are free. I'm not subscribed or anything to any of these. They're all free to use. Anyone can use them anytime, anywhere. So, that's what I recommend, is just use a whole bunch of different services because they all offer slightly different things that can help give you more insight into your game. Okay. So that's just, identify your best champs, what you do well on, and try to play those. If you can play meta champs, try to play meta champs if they're in your wheelhouse. But once again, if there are some extreme circumstances, if you just play like a billion games on Kalista or Kog'Maw or Vayne or something like that, and you've pretty much never played Miss Fortune or you've never played Lucian or Caitlyn or some of these other strong champs right now, then don't play those champs. But if it's a coin flip, if you haven't played Kalista a lot and you haven't played Miss Fortune a lot and you're going to play one of those champs, you should play Miss Fortune because she's, more powerful right now in the meta. So if it's pretty close, if it's a tough call, if you're, about the same win rate and similar experience on a couple of different champs and one of them's meta and one of them's not, try to learn the meta one. especially things that can be really good one-trick champions in all metas. I do have several one-trick videos. Be sure to check those out. I'm going to do a new one for Season 10, probably over the next week or so. Okay. Now, be sure to check out the rest of your team as well. So I showed you how to research yourself. I like to use Professor. There are other apps as well. I can't show you this because I'm not in a game. But basically, you just copy-paste. You just hold down the left-click button, select everything, and champion select where it shows such and such join the lobby. Just copy that. Just press C, and then just paste that into Professor or op.gg. And it'll give you all the information about your teammates. And I like Professor because it only looks at the last 30 days, and it also gives you really useful tags. Like this person is really good at vision, or this person's an aggressive laner, or this person's very vulnerable to ganks, or they play kamikaze, they suicide a lot in lane. Some of this stuff can be very useful for helping you understand. But the biggest thing is you just want to make sure that most of the people on your team are playing something that they have experience on and that they have a reasonable win rate on. Okay, so that can just help you understand a little bit more about if you should dodge. I have a whole video on dodging, so I'm not going to go into that a lot. Be sure to check that out as well. But get this information. And you're not getting this information to flame your teammates to say, hey, idiot, you've never played Scion. Why are you picking Scion? You're getting this information just so you know what you should be doing, if you should dodge a game, and which champions you should be playing. So part of this might also be, and it's really important, look at your support. I look at the AD carry, as a support to figure this out. If there's an auto-filled AD carry that's playing like Ezreal or something that they don't know how to win on, I'm not going to pick something that is super aggressive in lane that's going to require my ADC to be aggressive with me. So I'm not going to play something like Zyra, or I'm not going to play something, maybe like Nautilus in the laning phase. I'm much more likely to play something like Soraka, who is pretty much going to allow you to go even in most lanes and is going to scale a lot better into the mid game and allow you to team fight a lot better and win that way. Or play something like Rakan where I can roam around, and it's like if the ADC starts feeding, I can just go camp mid lane and try to make plays there. Versus, if I have someone that's a support main that's very strong and they're playing something like very aggressive early like a Draven or like a Misfortune or a Jhin, then maybe I'm a lot more likely to go something like Zyra, especially if our team needs AP. So just look at that information, see what you can get out of it. If it's looking bad, dodge. If your support's auto-filled or they're playing something they've never played before, just understand that they're not going to be as good as your average Baron support. So you might need to play something that scales a little better, or something where you're going to be able to, operate by yourself in the laning phase. So maybe don't play Kog'Maw, if you have a first-time auto-filled Soraka player on your team, because she's probably not going to peel very well for you, and she's probably not going to trade very well. If you can play Kog'Maw, or you can play Ezreal or Caitlyn or something a little more safe, you should probably play the more safe champion in that situation. So pick something defensive if your support is bad. Bad is a harsh word. Maybe auto-filled, inexperienced, something like that. Just at least take it into consideration. And if you want to pick something very dangerous, try to ask for a swap. So if you really love to play Vayne, you like one-trick Vayne, or in this meta, Kai'Sa I think is pretty dangerous as well because she's very short range and can get abused. Maybe just ask someone, hey, can someone switch with me if your first pick? Just say, can I grab that Yasuo for you? If you have like a one-trick Yasuo that's like fourth pick that wants to play mid lane, just say, can I switch with you? Or if the support is the last pick and they don't really care, they can play a bunch of different stuff. Say, hey, support, do you have Vayne? Can you switch with me? That type of stuff. So that doesn't always work, but it doesn't hurt to ask if you just are really fond of playing something that's dangerous, but that's your one trick, or that's just something that you're having a lot of success on. Just ask to switch. Research popular runes, talked about that. Adjust your items based on game states and win cons. We'll talk about game state here in a second, but make sure that you're adjusting your items. Now, I tried to show you how to learn more about that, right? Look at the pro players, look at the one tricks, and think carefully, why are they getting these items? Especially if you flip through and they're doing something unusual. So if they're building a weird item or like a defensive item, why are they doing that? Why did this person get Quicksilver Sash second? And try to understand like what's up with that. Okay? Don't just go to u.gg or whatever site you use and just pick the most popular build. Don't just every single game, build Storm Razor, Gensu's, Hurricane, no matter what, right? You want to be thinking, okay, this is good to do a lot of the time, but maybe I need to adjust. And I still see some people getting like tier Manamune Gensu's on Kai'Sa, and I think that's just not really good in this meta, but there might be some sites out there that are recommending it because it had been a very popular build last year, and they just haven't updated it for the new season, so that could be something to keep in mind there. So yeah, Storm Razor on Kai'Sa is a great example. That's kind of what you need to do in this meta because you need to have early power. Or Essence Reaver on Ashe. I still see a lot of Ashes getting Blazer and King into Hurricane, and I just think that's not very good in this meta because it's too slow and it's built for team fights, right? So like right here, everybody's getting this, but a lot of reason that the pros will get this is because it's for team fights, right? So Blazer and King triggers on every single Hurricane bolt. So if it's a team fight, if you're hitting 3 people with those bolts, yeah, it's a great item. It does a lot of damage. But if it's a skirmish fight, if a lot of your team is skirmishing, if it's just a bunch of assassins and it's people running around YOLOing, like, it's not going to be as strong because you're only going to be hitting 1 or maybe 2 people with those bolts off of the Hurricane, and that's not going to be as good. Versus something like Essence Reaver might be stronger because it's going to give you more opportunities, the 20% CDR for more arrows, which is going to allow you to make more plays in solo queue, which can be huge. And the critical strike is going to scale really well on Ashe. Or even just Rush. Now, Infinity Edge Rush is a little bold. You can do that on Ashe, but those components are not quite as friendly. Although Infinity Edge is going to do a lot more single target damage than Blazer and King is on single item. So it's Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge are much, much better single item power spikes, especially for 1v1s or 2v2s, than Blazer and King is. The Blazer and King build doesn't come online until you get Blade and Hurricane and you're having team fights. So some of that's going to just depend on what your team's doing. If your team, or if the enemy team has a lot of tanks, Blazer and King's going to be better. But just understanding that you might need to adjust off of those builds depending on the situation. And pros are going to be getting a lot more... Blazer and King plus Hurricane if they play Ashe at all. Most of the time they aren't playing Ashe right now. But if they do, they're going to do that because there's a lot more team fighting in Challenger level play and Pro level play. And there's a lot less YOLO, type of action going on there. That's right. So just keep that in mind. Okay, next tip, and then, one final thing, and then we'll speed up and make sure we get all this done in under an hour. You want to tab often and play around power spikes and try to force favorable trades. We'll talk about trading more here in a second, and get favorable backs. So if you have enough for a BF sword, and you know that the enemy's going to be getting a tier, if it's a Kai'Sa that might get a tier, or an Ezreal or something like that, you need to force a back right then so that you can get your BF sword and come in before they complete their full Manamune. You don't want to sit there and just farm off when you have a BF sword and you're going to get a BF and a pickaxe and you're giving them a full Manamune. You need to back, force them to back also, so that when you get back to lane, you have a BF sword, they have a tier, and you're going to be able to pressure them really hard. Okay, on the flip side, if you're a tier user, you want to make sure that they can't back when they get that BF sword. You want to be pressuring them, trying to push them in a tower, or if you know they're about to back, if you know they're going to have about 1,300 gold, and you're not going to get a good back, see if you can call and get a dragon or something like that. So at least you're getting some advantage off of their back timing. So that's a little bit more advanced, but just if you can't do that, if you're not thinking ahead about matchups or back timings and things like that, at least press tab and just look at the items and make a decision, right? So, for instance, if that Zyra just completed her Morellonomicon or Sorcerer Boots or something like that, she's going to do a lot more damage in the mid-game. So think about that if you're thinking about all-inning. Maybe your Nautilus is looking for an all-in, and the enemy, has been farming better, and their Jhin has a BF sword, and their Zyra, rush Sorcerer Boots on their first back. Your Nautilus only has, like, a Kindle Gem or something like that, and you only have a pickaxe. you know, you maybe don't want to fight them because they're going to do a lot more damage. So it takes some practice and knowledge to kind of get used to that. But just start thinking about that. Or just don't get caught off guard, you know, by the Diana mid lane who has 5 kills, you know, and she's already completed like Rod of the Ages, Nashor's Tooth. And then you get involved in a team fight and she jumps on you and you don't flash because you don't think she's going to do that much damage. And you die and you're like, what the hell? How'd she do that much damage? It's like, well, if you tabbed, you would have noticed that she had a ton of gold and she just completed big items. So just make sure that you're always tabbing so that you're not caught off guard and you understand like how you should be approaching the game. Okay. And then try to get those preferable backs slightly more advanced. But, you know, if you're working your way through gold or platinum, you definitely need to start thinking about those back timings, right? Trying to force back so you can get your BF sword, or stopping the enemy from backing if they want to get the BF and you only have a tier or something like that. Okay, vision control and roaming. So buy control wards, okay, as an ADC. That's number one. Think of it as an investment. I know it's annoying. Now, sometimes there might be places where you can't buy a control ward. You know, if you back and you have literally exactly 1,300 gold and you can get a BF sword, you have to get that. You don't want to get a control ward and a pickaxe and be sitting there on like 300 gold or 400 gold, right? You want to make sure that you're spending your gold efficiently. But if you have, you know, 300 or 1375 gold, you better get a control ward on the way back with that BF sword. So just make sure that you always get that control ward, unless they're like you just down to the penny, you know, within 75 gold, you have a key power spike. Then you should be getting control wards. And the main reason for this is, I mean, Vision's OP, but it allows you to not only be more defensive, so like know if the enemy's ganking, but it allows you to be more aggressive. If you know the enemy's not there, you can take more aggressive trades, you can deny people, you can push advantages. Just Vision sets up so many good things in the game. I have entire videos about Vision control as well. But even as an ADC, heavily consider getting that Vision because it can make a huge difference. Now, you don't want to have to be buying like a ton of control wards. Like supports, good supports will be going through and just using control wards everywhere just to shut out Vision. But if you can just put it somewhere that's kind of just like you can put up the defensive ward or something, that can be useful. So like a really good spot as an ADC, if you're on red side, if you're on top side, might be just put your ward either in the pixel bush. You could even put it here if you want it even more defensive. If you're worried they might engage, you can put it here. Or you could even put it here just to make sure you don't get dove. And that'll also allow you to sweep this area, right? So if you do put it right here in this bush, put it in the very corner so that you get maximum vision of this thing here. I see some ADCs, you know, will try to put it like right here, and that's really bad because it's only going to give you vision of like this. And it's not going to give you this part right here. So that can be a really handy place to put your vision. If you are, and if you have your ward there, if you have your control ward right here, then your support might be more willing to like donate their control ward over here, or maybe they can put their ward in the pixel brush. But this is one, if you have a defensive ward in one of these two spots, it's unlikely the enemy's going to clear a lot, so you're not going to have to buy a lot of extra control wards. At least not in the early game. So just put your wards in efficient places, and
if you never use the lid, don't use the trap cut. That's the last one.
Then you may not have to do as many. Okay, if you're on blue side though, you know, maybe you could, you know, on one of your backs, like you could try to donate your ward. It's a little bit harder to get like quality control wards on blue side, but you could put yours, you know, like right here. If you're pushing up, if you're getting control of the lane, you could have yours in the tri-bush to help cancel out that vision, or you could similarly put it right here. Or if you're worried that mid lane's going to roam on you a lot or they're going to invade, you know, you could put it here, or you could put an aggressive one here or here. So these are all like pretty decent spots where they may not clear it out. This is actually a pretty good one aggressively too. There's still not a lot of people that have adjusted to this new bush, so putting a control ward there can actually last quite a while. And if they don't ward it, so many junglers will just walk right past this without walking in that bush. So that's going to be pretty good spots. Just make sure you're getting those control wards down. And help your support place vision, okay? Now this is something that a lot of ADCs won't do, but it's pretty simple, right? So if you're over here, we'll zoom in. Let's say that we'll talk about wave management here in a minute. Let's say you have them pushed in, right? You're right here, and your support decides they're going to go over here to try to ward something, right? Maybe they're going to try to ward this or whatever. You might as well go with them, right? If they're pushing, because what are you doing right here? If you're standing right here and your support goes to ward, it's really dangerous because they could engage on you, right? They could potentially kill you right here. You're not going to be getting that much CS anyways. It's going to bounce off the tower and come back to you. You're not going to be able to harass them that much under tower by yourself. So if you're a smart ADC, you're going to be standing here anyways while your support wards. So why not just walk with them? If you're standing here anyways, you might as well just go walk with them. Because that way, if the jungler shows up, you might be able to pressure them off, right? So that they can't pick off your support. Or if a fight breaks out, maybe if your jungler's around here too, and their jungler's around here, then you're already there. Or maybe you see a good opportunity. Maybe your support's going over here to ward. Maybe they want to drop their ward on the pixel brush or something like that, and then all of a sudden a fight's breaking out mid lane, right? Like maybe, they just decide to engage. Maybe their jungler comes out from the bushes here and starts a fight, then you're already here, like with your support. And now your support might say, hey, we're here anyways. We might as well come up here and see if we can chip into this fight. So you're just in a more productive position when you do that, right? Because if you're just going to be sitting here and your support's right here and a fight breaks out middle, it's like your support might go there. If your support goes there, you're going to be zoned off even more. You're going to have to back all the way up while you wait on your support to come back down here. Or your support might not be able to make that play because you're not there. They might say, hey, I don't think I can turn this around. The mid laner is going to die too fast. So they might come back down. Versus if you were there, maybe they could go make that play and get that kill. So just do something productive with your time while your support's roaming. And usually one of the best things you can do is just go with them. And that'll allow you to get your control ward down too. So maybe if your support's going right here and you've got a control ward in your inventory, maybe you can just drop your control ward right there. They can drop their control ward there, and then maybe your support's going to have more confidence because you're there with them, and they can just go ahead and just ward up their jungle like that, like a Christmas tree, and now all of a sudden, like, you have, full vision control of this area. So just go with your support, if possible, and try to go roam. Now, if your support is going at really wacky times to try to ward, then don't do it, right? So, like, if you're pushed under tower, maybe the minions are up right here, and your support is just deciding, okay, they might be doing Baron, so I need to go try to, ward Baron here. Or maybe they would just want to try to, get a quick ward in here. Then obviously you don't want to follow them, especially if, their AD carry and their support are here too. And you can actually kind of farm here if you're under tower. You want to be careful, but you're a little bit safer here. So you want to stay and make sure you're not losing experience and gold. But, if they're pushed into the tower, you might as well go roam with them. So just consider going with your support to go ward. At a very minimum, if your support wards or roams, you need to back up. Do not die. So, for example, like maybe your support, let me just reset this here. Maybe your support, if they're not pushed in, if the wave's just like in the middle and your support's just coming up here to ward like this, and maybe a fight breaks out between the junglers, up here, maybe they're fighting over Scuttle, and your support decides they want to go to that, and you're like cut off, right? You can't go. Maybe the minions are like right here, and you can't go. Well, that's okay. It's understandable. You got cut off. You can't do it. You can ping a lot. Now, if they rotate up here, you should probably rotate too. Like, you should probably go up there. But it depends on your ADC, and what they're playing. Like, that could be very dangerous because then they could turn around and sandwich you. So, a lot of that's kind of game time decision. You gotta decide. But if your support goes to roam and you're sitting here, the one thing that definitely should not happen is they engage and kill you. Okay? So you need to back up. Just stay in experience range. Or if it's not safe to even do that, if they're playing like Draven, Leona or something, just come over here and just get the golems or something if those are up, right? Just farm this. Stay in experience range. Maybe just take a back timing. Maybe you're sitting on 1,000 gold, right? And maybe you were saving for a BF sword, but you just think, hey, you know what? I can't farm here anyways because my support's roaming. And they've been gone for a while. Maybe you just go ahead and back, get a pickaxe, and then come back to lane. And then that way, when your support comes back down, then maybe now you have a power spike where you can engage, because maybe Draven hasn't bought yet, and he just keeps pushing, and maybe he's sitting on 1,500 gold, but you have a pickaxe, your support's here now, you tab and look at it, and you're like, okay, now we can engage and fight him. So just try to find something productive you can do if you're getting zoned out. You know, if you're on the other side, right, maybe if your brown support comes over here and roams, and you're sitting here as the ADC, it's in the middle, they're zoning you off, just go over here and get Gromp or something. Or, like, maybe come up and try to rotate this way to make a play. Right? Now, this also applies in the wave management, which we'll talk about here in a second. But if you're getting zoned off, if they're super far ahead of you, like, you might just have to go find something else to do. Now, this doesn't usually happen until, like, much higher elos. But if they get a couple of kills on you and they're just sitting there, like, and you can't do anything, just go roam with your support. See if you can farm the Gromp and the Wolves. If you're, like, jungler just keeps camping top lane over and over again, maybe they're duoed and they're just not even farming their jungle, and you can't farm in your lane because their jungler is just sitting on bot lane, like they keep ganking it like 3 or 4 times over and over again. You know, sometimes people say, well, what can I do? I keep getting ganked. They're hard camping me. My jungler just, you know, doesn't understand how the meta works right now. They just keep camping for top lane. You know, just go get their jungle or something like that. Now, if they're going to AFK quit if you do that, then, you know, don't do it. But just, like, try to find something you can do. Find some gold. Find some opportunities. You know, should your jungler maybe go bottom so that you don't keep giving, like, all of the dragons and scuttles and all of the pressure to the enemy team? Probably in solo queue right now. But if they're not doing it, they're not doing it. So maybe you just have to farm the Gromp. Maybe even the Wolves. And just get preferential backs. Try to roam. Whatever you can do, try to do it. Maybe try to sneak a Scuttle or something. So if they're hard camping you here, but Scuttle's up, maybe you can sneak in here and get Scuttle. Just see what you can do. But if your support's roaming or if you're getting zoned, just don't die and try to be as productive as possible. I mean, maybe the only thing you can do if Gromp's not there, if nothing's there, maybe the only thing you can do is just stand in experience range. Just stand like right here and just at least get experience. So yeah, whatever you do, don't die. Play support. Or play safe. See if you can roam with the support. Try to farm the jungle. See if you can go get a good vision ward down. Get a back timing. You know, whatever you can do. Always try to push and roam before objectives. This is another thing that kind of fits into the wave management as well. But if you're about to back, you always want to push them in. And if you're about to roam, you want to push them in. We'll talk about that more here in just a little bit. We're kind of running a little short on time. But, you know, if you're right here... and maybe you kill the enemy support or something like that. Let me reset this. You kill the enemy support and, you know, they're gone. You got a bunch of minions right here. And you're thinking of, like, going to go get dragon or whatever. You want to make sure that you put these minions into the tower. That you pressure them right there. You move the minions right here. And then you go to the dragon, okay? Because what's going to happen if you don't do that is the ADC, if you leave the wave right here... then the ADC is going to be able to push you in, and you're going to miss experience at the tower, right? And then that's going to give them a better back timing. Or they might actually be able to rotate over here to make a play. So maybe you leave the minions right here, and even though they're down a person, maybe your mid laner just randomly backed, like this Anivia the other night. Maybe your mid laner just randomly backed, their mid laner's there and they're ahead, and they still are able to fight you for dragon, right? If their ADC's there. So maybe their jungler and their ADC, maybe their jungler's around here, your jungler's around here, they're jockeying for Scuttle and Dragon. And if you don't push them in, then their ADC might be able to rotate over here when you rotate over here. And so then you've got a 3-on-3 fight, right? Versus if you push them all the way into the tower, their ADC might be caught here farming when you rotate, and then you're going to be able to get a 3v2 here that you're going to be much more likely to win if the ADC doesn't roam. Now, if the ADC also roams, then they're going to be missing CS at the tower. They might lose plates. Most ADCs are going to sit here and farm this tower if a wave crashes into it instead of rotating. Or they're at least going to farm it first before they rotate, which will give you, you know, maybe a 5 or 10 second head start. And sometimes that's enough to just go ahead and dominate the fight before they even get there. So just make sure that you're pushing, trying to get priority in the lane before you go make roams or before you make plays on objectives. Make sure you're showing up to fights. as far as roaming. So, don't find yourself down here hanging out, farming in mid lane whenever your team is, trying to position in the, or farming in the bot lane rather, while your team's trying to position the mid lane for a fight. Right? Now you might say, like, even if you ping it a lot, like, don't fight, I'm pushing, like, sometimes that can work, but a lot of times, especially lower elos, they're going to fight, right? Like, someone's going to be standing too close, they're going to get engaged on, you're not going to have teleport as support or as AD carry most of the time, unless you're, like, Challenger or Pro. So, just don't do it a lot of times. There might be some cases where you need to split as the ADC, but, most of the time, you should be letting your mid laner or top laner do that. So make sure that you're showing up to fights. Part of that's also you don't want to be over here, like when your team's about to break out into a fight mid lane, you don't want to be over here getting red if your team is in a really vulnerable position, right? You need to be pinging them back, saying, back up, I need to get red. But if they don't back up, you might have to forget red just so that you can show up to this fight. Okay? And just don't be off sides for key objectives. It's kind of like what I just mentioned. If your team's like trying to position around Baron or whatever, Baron's up, you shouldn't be on the bottom side of the map. Okay. Game state and win conditions. So we've talked about a lot of these sort of off and on, but we'll talk about a couple more here. Tab often. Make sure that you're looking at key items that the enemy has. Your allies and your enemies. Look at what your support has. Look at what your mid laner has. Look at what, the enemy ADC has. And in general, as the game develops, you want to abuse weak people and try to avoid strong people. So, for example, if their top laner Darius is 5-0 and has Trinity Force and is really strong, you need to maybe try to get your team to not fight a team fight where that guy's there until you catch up a little bit, right? Versus, if they have like an 0-3 Kassadin or something like that, maybe you should try to fight the Kassadin or take the team fights to him, right? So just play around whoever's strong on your team, whoever's weak on the enemy team, and play around your own strength, your own win con. And that may not always be you. So, there might be some games, and some people ask me this all the time, well, what do I do? Like, if I'm constantly getting camped, how do I play? You'll hear challenger players even saying, well, I don't understand, like, how I can win or how I play this. As a support player, I'm used to thinking about this, right? Because I'm never the person with a lot of gold, or it's very rare, or the items, so I have to constantly look and figure out, who does have the items, who does have the gold, and how can I play around that person. But that also applies as ADC to an extent. Now, ADC often as default is one of the options to carry a game in terms of like getting a lot of items, getting a lot of gold, getting a lot of resources. But sometimes that may not be the case. So, like I talked about earlier, if all game you're sitting here, like they're just hard camping you, and your jungler is duoed with the top lane, or maybe that's just a really good matchup. Maybe it's a one-trick Riven top. She got an early kill, like one kill, and they have someone who's really easy to exploit top. Maybe they're playing a Darius who's like 0-3, who has no escapes, and it's just really worthless if he's behind. Maybe they're camping for that. Maybe this Riven's 5-0 in the top lane. Maybe this jungler has been camping you all game. Maybe you died once in the bot lane, and then you just had to play really defensive. Maybe you're down 30 or 40 CS, and you just can't do anything. You can do those things. You can't do anything like at sort of like tier 1 thinking, right? Where you have to go next level and start roaming or gromp or whatever. But yeah, just play around that win con. So maybe that means you need to give the preferable farm to that Riven if she's really far ahead. So like later in the game, if there's like a huge minion wave right here, and you're back, you're playing Misfortune, you're behind 50 CS and a kill, and that Riven's 5-0 and she's up 50 CS, and both of you are wanting to come down here and clear this fat wave, you should probably give it to the Riven. Right? And I know that sucks. You don't want to trust your teammates. That's what everyone says. Don't trust your teammates. All of this kind of stuff. But League of Legends is a snowball game, right? Whoever's ahead, you want to get them more ahead as much as possible, because items stack multiplicatively. Once you start getting more AD, once you start getting more spell pen, once you start getting more survivability, it makes you even stronger. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. Once you start doing these things, it's stronger and stronger and stronger. So you really, if you could choose, do you want one champion on your team to have 4 items that's really far ahead, or do you want 2 different champions to have 2 items? You should almost always want the one champion with 4 items if it's a hard carry champ, right? So, if it's like a Scion or something, or like just a CC tank, the items don't matter as much. But if it's like, do you want 4 items on your Riven, or do you want 2 items on your Misfortune and 2 items on your Diana? You want 4 items on the Riven. And y'all see this all the time, right? So many games can be determined by one person who has like 15 kills or something, because people just can't stop them. Because that's just how League works. It's just multiplicative. The items all stack with each other. So having 4 items on one person is usually, if it's a good carry person and they're playing intelligently, is usually stronger than having 2 items on 2 different champs. So that just might be a case where, if you're looking at the tab, you're thinking about farming this, the Riven pings it, you might just say, all right, I'm going to give it to the Riven. And then you go over here and just farm some wolves or just go find something else to do, right? Or maybe it's red buff, Maybe your Lee Sin is 10-0 or something like that, and you're 0-3 bot lane. Maybe you should give that Lee Sin the red buff, right? So, just think about that. Just think about your resources. Think about how to play around your AD carry. Maybe if you're dying a lot, maybe they have, a 6-0 Zed. You might have to get a GA, like 3rd item, maybe 2nd item. If they keep hard diving you and you're dying all the time, you're like 0-7. Maybe the number 1 objective is just to stop dying, right? Maybe you have to stand really far back in team fights. Maybe you can't even go up and farm in the lane because they're going to jump out of a bush and kill you because your support's not warding, or maybe your support can't ward because they might die also to the Zed. So, just play around what you have. You don't be afraid to just let yourself get carried as the AD carry. That's fine. That's a win. That's talking about playing to win up here rather than trying to play for a highlight reel, right? Or to play for pentakills. If you're playing to win, you're going to have bad games sometimes, and you're just going to have to let other people carry you. There's no shame in that. Everybody wins. Everyone gets the same W. That's just smart gameplay, okay? People do this all the time in traditional sports too. Maybe the superstar's not having a great night, or maybe one of their teammates is having a really good game, and so you play around your teammates, right? You see this with like LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, a lot of these people, maybe they're having an off shooting night, or one of their teammates is really hot, and they play around that person. So, don't be afraid to do that. So make yourself carryable. That's what they say. Stop dying, and don't demand resources like a lot of jungle camps are like huge waves if other people can get it and they're in a better position to carry. And then heavily consider building a defensive item, right? Maybe get that Quicksilver Sash if they have a Nautilus early and they keep hard, trading on you. Or if they have, someone that keeps wanting to burst you out, maybe get yourself a Phantom Dancer second instead of going for that Infinity Edge second. So, just think carefully about how you're itemizing, how you're playing, and just make sure that you're playing around your best win condition. Okay, last couple of tips here, and we've mentioned a lot of this already, and so these, I guess, will be a bit faster because I've kind of jumped out of order a bit. But trading in lane, make sure that you're being as aggressive as you can be in an intelligent way trading in the lane. And this is one of the huge mistakes that I see all the time, even in low diamond. People don't trade appropriately. And what I mean by that is if the lane is neutral, what? Oh, the AD carry over here. If the lane is neutral and it's kind of an even matchup, you need to be positioned to trade, okay? So what that means is, and part of this is going to depend on what your support is doing, but you need to be there ready to go. So just think of this as just kind of like your line of scrimmage here, right? Wherever the minions are, this is your line, okay? So you need to be up here, ideally where the enemy wants to farm, you're going to be able to auto attack them when they farm. So you need to be up here, like near these minions if you can, and then whenever their AD carry is trying to go for this minion, you hit them with something. That's the easiest way to think about like how to trade. And champions that are popular right now are very good at this. So like Misfortune, Jhin, Caitlyn, Senna, all of these champs are very good at punishing AD carries while they're trying to farm. So just think about it. Just look for those opportunities. Every time they want to go in to do something, you make them pay for it. Just think every minion they have has a price tag on it, right? So every minion that they could get. So if they want to hit that minion and get that 14 gold off that ranged minion, you're going to be dealing 50 damage to them, right? So you're making them pay. And then over time, that doesn't sound like a lot, right? Even if you're just auto attack them once, right? Even if you just get 40 damage on them, if you do that every single minion wave, just think about that, 40 damage. If there's 6 minions on a wave, that's going to be 240 damage, right? They're going to be like at half health after one minion wave. Now, it's not always that simple, but it does add up a lot if you just take those small trades. It doesn't have to be an all-in to the death. Just be positioned to trade, right? Especially if your support's being aggressive. If your support's up here and it's like a Leona and they're looking to like hard engage on the ADC whenever they CS, you need to be ready to follow up with that. So if you're playing Caitlyn and you're standing way back here like max range auto attacking and your Leona engages right here, you're not in a position to do very much, right? You can maybe throw a Q and hit him, but if you were positioned right here, if you were also looking to trade, then you can put a trap on him. And if you get that trap follow-up as Caitlyn, you should almost be able to one-shot the enemy AD carry. So, you know, play up in the lane if possible. I see so many people give that up, like Caitlyn versus Ezreal or something, or Caitlyn versus Vayne. The Caitlyn will be sitting max range and won't be punishing a matchup that they should be winning, right? So just do that. Now, if your support is like basically sitting right here AFK in this bush, and, you know, it's like Janna or something, and they'll walk up and throw 1W on cooldown and then run back and sit in the bush, you know, you're going to have to play defensively. So that sucks, but sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. But if your support is looking to be aggressive, if they're standing up here in an aggressive position, you need to get up there with them. And if you get strong enough, you know, if you get them down to 50% health or whatever, as the Caitlyn, like maybe, like I said, the Leona engages when the ADC tries to farm, you trap them, bust them out, maybe they go down to 25% health, then you can position even further up, right? Then you can go to like right here and actually stand in front of the minions. It depends on how the minions are, but if the wave's about even or if it's slow pushing or something like that, you can actually deny minions and just be really aggressive and just position really aggressively here. All right, but I see so many people not taking an aggressive stance early enough in the game. They're just defaulting to farm off when your default should be to farm plus harass. Now, if they're really far ahead of you, you know, you're going to have to respect that. So if you're playing something like Kai'Sa early and they're playing, you know, Draven and they're standing up on this wave, you know, you're going to have to play back a little bit. You don't want to be playing up here like this if you're playing Vayne, Soraka into Draven, Leona or something like that, right? So you got to measure the matchup. But I see too often too many people play too scared. They play too passively and they don't look for trades. They just look to farm, and that's it, even if they're playing a lane-dominant champion. So just remember, every single auto attack counts. If you can get an auto attack in there, you know, try to get that auto. Be a little careful if it's literally just one auto attack and there's like a cannon wave or something, because the minions will hit you back. But, you know, a lot of times, just try to get every single hit you can possibly get on them while you're playing. So look for those vulnerable trades, abuse vulnerable matchups. If someone's weaker than you, play around those power spikes like I mentioned before. If you have a really strong level 2, you know you're going to hit level 2, you're going to hit that third melee minion and kill it before they do on the second wave for bot lane, go for that all in. You know, especially if your support's positioning for it. You know, if that Thresh is looking like he's ready to flash flare, Leona's ready to go in, you need to be ready for that. So if you know you're going to hit level 2, go ahead and start playing up. You're going to hit level 2, they're not. Go ahead and start playing up here. And then as soon as you hit level 2, you're ready to go. And just like hard go in. You know, Leona lands that E on there. You know, just do everything you have. As soon as they flash after them and kill them. You know, like just be super, super aggressive at very obvious moments of strength. Like you're going to hit level 2 first. You have a BF sword. They have a tier. You're going to hit level 6 first before them. Just be looking to punish as hard as you possibly can. So yeah, just account for minions, account for that in your trade calculations, abuse bushes if you can. So, you know, if they don't have anything dangerous going on in the bush, if you can, like, auto attack, do a trade, fade into the bush so the minions don't follow you. Just be really threatening as much as possible. I see so many AD carries will just stand in the middle of the lane. It's like you could be standing in the bush, like, also harassing. Now, sometimes that's dangerous because you don't have as many, like, angles to juke from if you're in a bush. So, you know, as usual, you got to read the situation. But just at least consider, could I be using the bushes a little bit better? And just match the playstyle of your support. If your support's just like AFK or really passive, you may not be able to be as aggressive. But if they are being aggressive, you definitely want to be able to match that. Okay. And then finally, wave management, the last thing I'll mention here. Looks like we'll go a little bit over an hour, but um, default to push and roam strategies, okay? Now, a lot of pros will kind of make fun of this, and they'll say, oh, people just mindlessly AFK. I hear this if you watch, like, pro guides or something. They'll say, people will just mindlessly push and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's the correct thing to do. Unless you, like, get to high diamond, that's what you want to be doing most of the time. It's just the easiest thing to do, right? So when you push them in a tower, like we mentioned earlier on, they're going to be missing CS. It's a lot harder to hit CS. You're going to get damage on the tower, and you're going to have those opportunities to make plays with your support, right? So some of this could be coming over here with your support while they ward. If you go with them, the support's going to have the confidence to maybe place some of these deeper wards and give you better vision. You're going to have the opportunity to put your control ward in a better place. Maybe you can put your control ward in one of these spots, right, to get that deep vision. If Scuttle's there, get the Scuttle. So many people don't get the Scuttle as AD carry. I have to ping this all the time. But if you have priority here, if the junglers are just like both goofing around top lane and there's a Scuttle there, like they're not pathing for Scuttle, which happens all the time in, ELO brackets below Diamond, people don't go for these Scuttles. Even in Platinum, a lot of people, even in low Diamond, people don't go for these Scuttles. Just nobody seems to value these things, but they're worth almost an entire minion wave, right? A lot of these early Scuttles, I don't know the exact gold on it, but I feel like the early ones even are worth like 60 to 80 gold, and a non-cannon wave is going to be worth like about 110 gold. So it's worth a lot, and it also heals you and gives you back a little bit of mana as well when you get that Scuttle, and it gives you a free vision ward, basically, for the duration, so you don't even have to use a ward there anymore, and that'll allow your support to place deeper wards. So just get that priority, come over here, get the Scuttle, get deep vision, look for opportunities to roam. Mid lane fights breaking out, your mid laner's getting ganked. Because like I said earlier, people say all the time, well, what do I do? Like, if my mid laner's feeding, what can I, how can I possibly win? I'll win my lane bot lane, but my mid laner went 0-5, and their, like, fed Zed assassin has taken over the game. It's like, well, this is something you can do. Because what does winning mean in the laning phase, right? There's always more you could do to win. So, like, if you just push them in a tower here, and you're just trying to harass them under tower, and that's it. You don't get any vision. You don't look for rotations, whatever. You might win the lane. You might be up 20 CS. Maybe you get a kill or two on them. But you didn't do everything you could have done. You didn't get the Scuttles. You didn't get deep vision. Maybe you didn't get the dragons. You didn't make a roam middle. Versus if you left here, if you went into this zone, maybe you get deeper vision there. Maybe that helps you track the jungler better so that your mid laner doesn't die to the jungler because he knows where they are. Or maybe that allows your top laner to be more aggressive because the junglers on the bottom side of the map, they have a really snowbally matchup. Maybe it's like Riven and a Darius or something top lane. Now your top laner knows that, so they can be more aggressive and kill this Darius because they know the jungler's not going to be there. Or, more directly, maybe a fight breaks out mid lane early on in the game, right? Maybe the Zed is not that fed yet. Maybe he has one kill and your mid laner's 0-1. He tries to go for an all-in here, and then you show up with the support, turn it around, get that kill. Actually, I have the icons backward here. But you turn it around. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You turn it around, you get that kill. Now maybe your mid laner doesn't die, and now you can push up, get some plates. Now your mid laner gets a couple of plates. Maybe you even get this entire tower, and that's going to allow your mid laner to roam. So if you just sat there in your lane and you didn't do anything, and this Diana just had to 1v1 the Zed in a matchup where she fell behind, maybe she does go 0-5 in that universe. But maybe if you roam, maybe she only dies once or twice. You get a kill back on the Zed, you get some plates, you open up this tower. Now she doesn't have to face Zed anymore. Now maybe she can roam and make a play top lane. Or maybe she can help you out now. Now that you already won, or now that you already pushed in bot lane, and you opened her up, you got her some gold and some kills, maybe now she can come gank for you in the bot lane and help you get even further ahead, right? So all of this can snowball really, really hard if you just make better rotations, if you dominate. And that's how you carry your team. You don't carry your team necessarily just by being up 15 CS and 2 kills in lane, right? You carry your team by completely dominating, by helping the rest of your team win. through these rotations. Or maybe, you know, another scenario, maybe your jungler is constantly getting invaded, right? And they're getting dominated. Maybe they're playing a Mumu or something. The enemy's playing Lee Sin. And you're just sitting here, you know, warding versus, or just sitting here like trading in lane versus if you'd actually rotated, you were over here. First of all this vision's going to help out your jungler too. Vision helps everyone. But then if this Lee Sin invades, maybe you can rotate over here and kill the Lee Sin. And this also hurts the mental of your enemy a ton, right? Because if you do this like twice, right? Sometimes even once, you do this twice to the Zed that was winning 1v1, now he's going to start yelling at the bot lane. He's going to start saying, where are the MIA pings? Why don't y'all control your lane? What's going on? And if he does that twice, maybe the support says, screw you, man, I'm going to go AFK. Like, right? Or maybe they're not focused, right? Maybe the support's not even, like, going to try to rotate because they're not even thinking straight anymore. Or maybe even if they don't AFK, they might think, like, screw this Zed, he's really rude, I'm not going to help him. Right? I'm just going to help my AD carry out. So you start turning them against each other when you make these unexpected roams and get plays. People get tilted, people get mad, people start chattering because they don't mute their chat, like I'm telling you guys to. And you can just win people off of that. Maybe the Zed just straight up goes AFK if you do that twice to him. So you can get a lot of free wins off of just wave management. Just push them in a tower, roam, and see what you can do. Get the scuttle, get the vision, look for plays mid lane. Look for plays with your jungler. Get early dragons. There's so much more you can do if you do that. Versus, you know, some challenger, you know, level people will say things like, oh, you should try to look for freezes in the laning phase, right? You know, or you should try to look for keeping the wave even to keep, like, to save yourself from getting ganked. It's like, yes, in challenger, I mean, challenger players aren't dumb. They're obviously very, very smart players. But a lot of them are talking about challenger level gameplay, and that's really different from solo queue based gameplay, like when you're like diamond or lower, right? So like in challenger level play, you know, they're going to be ready for that, right? You know, they're going to communicate. If you push someone in like this, they're going to communicate about that. They're going to tell their mid laner, hey, bot lane's rotating up here. They're going to have better vision, so they're going to be watching you. Their support's going to have vision around here. Maybe their mid laner is going to have a ward here. Their jungler is going to have a ward, you know, maybe deep in your jungler. So they're going to have a lot of these wards all over the place. So it's going to make your roams a lot less ineffective by yourself. You should still, even in Challenger, be looking for roam plays like that. But it's not as easy to dominate. They're probably going to have a stronger mental, so they're not going to tilt out. You know, their mid laner is going to play more defensively. And things like that. Maybe it's just more risky. Right? Maybe they see you on a ward and their jungler is in the area, and then all of a sudden their jungler and their mid laner collapse and their support rotates over and collapses too whenever you do that, and they gang up on you, right, and get a kill on you. So people are used to that in Challenger, and it's going to be a lot more likely that they're going to be able to, it's just a lot more risky to do this, the push and roam type of stuff in Challenger. And so if you're in Challenger, maybe the best thing you can be doing is to zone. Because that can cause a lot of problems too, if done properly, right? So if you intelligently zone, if you get ahead, like I was talking about earlier, maybe you get a couple of good trades, and then instead of pushing, you zone, then this can open up a lot of opportunities. Because you're going to be able to sit there, and they're going to manage the wave perfectly, probably. They're going to keep it very close together, so they can zone it right there, or they're going to build up what they call a slow push, which is really advanced, where they'll leave like 1 or 2 extra minions on the wave. It's going to push up very slowly. They'll call this into their jungler. They'll say, hey, got a slow wave pushing. It's going to be, you know, crashing into the tower here in about 30 seconds. Jungler's going to say, Roger. Okay, they're going to come down here. You might even have the mid laner in on that, and the mid laner's going to notice it. And they're going to say, okay, we got a slow push going bot. We're going to go right here, and then they're going to come down, and they're going to tower dive with you. And then they're going to get this tower dive. They're going to get multiple kills, possibly take that tower, get the dragon, and it's probably going to be lights out for the game. So that's why in like Challenger, you know, slow pushing, zoning, things like that are more advanced tactics that can gain even more advantage at a higher percentage than trying to push and roam. But that's not happening in gold, man. Like, people are not going to do that in gold. Your jungler is not going to notice that a slow push is building. A lot of times your support is not going to, like, notice that you're trying to freeze. They're going to auto-attack the minions, or they're just going to randomly back, or they're going to try to rotate when you're trying to freeze, and then you're going to get yourself frozen out, right? So if your support tries to rotate while you're trying to hold it here and freeze, then the enemy, might be able to catch the wave right here and freeze you out. And all of a sudden, while your support's roaming, they're going to be, zoning you out, right? And then you're not going to be able to do anything. So it's really risky to try to do these advanced tactics like slow pushing and zoning if like your team just doesn't understand what it is. Like, it just takes a lot more macro knowledge by the general population to pull that off, versus the push and roam is pretty easy to understand, right? Like, that's so much easier to execute. It's so much easier to understand. You literally just put them into the tower over and over again, and then just move to the middle of the river and make stuff happen. Scuttle, dragon, vision, rotate to mid. Okay, nothing's happening, fine. Go back down bottom. Put a pink in there, like, shut out all their vision, put a pink here, put a pink here, get that vision, get them shut out, and just keep the vice grip on them in the bot lane. So either way is good. You just want to be doing something productive, but I'm telling you, sometimes you got to be careful with those challenger guides, because they're very smart for, like, in the challenger meta, but a lot of times, these guys, they don't play as much in, like, gold, platinum, even low diamond and stuff like that. So it just really depends on what your elo is, what's going on. If you're, like, duoed with the jungler, maybe you can make the slow push work a little bit better, or the zone work a little bit better. But just in general, and you got to remember, people don't feed as much in, like, challenger. Sometimes they do, but not to the same level that they would in silver or gold. So even if you are executing a zone properly, right? So maybe you are sitting here, you do have a good zone. Let me just reset this. Maybe you do have a really good zone going, right? Maybe your support knows what's going on. You've got a good zone. Maybe you're duoed with your support. Y'all know what's up. You're really far ahead. And you just zone them off here. Perfect. So now you're going to be up like 40 CS or whatever, and 2 levels on them. But once again, that mid laner's feeding, right? So that's what you got to be thinking. Like, okay, if I do this, maybe my mid laner is just getting busted up, right? Maybe my mid laner's 0-5 down 30 CS. Maybe my top laner's 0-6 down 80 CS, right? If you're zoning, it's like, yeah, you're up 30 CS. That's good, That's the equivalent of maybe, I don't know, like 500 gold or something like that. But the mid laner, the enemy mid laner getting 5 kills while you're doing that, that's like 1,500 gold, when you could have been shutting that down if you just roamed and applied pressure to mid. So that's the problem, is in challenger, the mid laner's probably not going 0-5 while you're setting up a freeze, right? They're going to notice it if they're behind. If they die once or twice, they're just going to play really defensively. They're going to identify bot lane is like completely murdering the other bot lane, so they're just going to chill and let the bot lane carry a lot of times, right? So, but that's not happening. In silver, your mid laner is going to start raging. They're going to say, someone help me out. I'm 0-5. This guy keeps pushing so hard. Jungler, you're an idiot. Why don't you come help me, jungler? And then the jungler and the mid laner are going to start arguing. Someone's going to go AFK. All of that is going to happen in silver and gold. So you can't just sit there and zone most of the time, because even though that's the correct thing to do in challenger, that's the incorrect thing to do if everyone on your team is feeding and raging constantly, right? If that's happening, you have to go influence that fight. You have to, just go like step on the throat of the Zed and do not let them dominate, right? You have to come up here and just dumpster them. So, solo queue a lot is like a time bomb, right? Just everybody's just waiting to go off. There's going to be, someone's going to rage quit if the game goes long enough, or someone's going to make a really dumb play and like try to 1v5 and throw it Baron, or, there's any number of things. So you need to dominate from start to finish, just hard dominate every lane that you possibly can. And that's why the push and roam is far, far better under Diamond. And even in low Diamond, I think it's better, even though it's not as good in Challenger because of the reasons that I stated. So it's not that the Challenger guides and things like that are wrong. They are correct for Challenger or Pro Play. That's how you do it. That's the best way. The safest, most consistent way to gain an advantage and win a game might be to zone or to freeze. But it's not always the same level of play style that's going on in some of the lower brackets. Okay, anyways, that's going to be it. Sorry, this is a little bit of a longer video. I'm trying to keep them under an hour, but I just really wanted to explain some of these things in depth because it doesn't get explained in a lot of other videos out there. So thank you very much. If you like a guide like this, if there's another topic you want to know more about, you want to have me do a separate, even more detailed wave management guide or roaming guide or like dodging guide. If you want to know more about, like, you want me to update my stat guides, I do have guides about all of these things, although they are a bit older. I'm going to go through and try to, like I said, update these some over time. But if there's something very specific that you want or you just want to help support the channel, consider commissioning one of these guides. Or if you want in-depth coaching for me to, talk about these things and how they apply specifically to one of your games that you were really confused about or that you want some help with, just stop by the stream. I can do that. Or just an op.gg. If you're, trying out a new build or some new runes, you want my feedback on it, see what I think about it, we can do that for you as well. And be sure to check out the rest of the content on the channel. We have the coaching playlist, more guides like this, in a link in the description if you want to see some of those other guides that I mentioned. Stream starts 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, so come by, check that out. It's a lot of fun. Usually we go till about 2 or 3 a.m. I try to be very conversational with people as much as possible while I'm playing the game, so I can't always get to every single question depending on how busy the chat is, but I will answer as many as I can, and if it's really important, just let me know in between games and I'll be sure to answer it. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Hopefully this helps you out, and I'll see you next time.